Oh boy. So I keep seeing stuff like this coming up on my Facebook. So let's have a little bit of a chat real quick about this meme and let's discuss its validity. So this meme says witches call it spells, Christians call it prayer, spiritualists call it manifestation, atheists call it placebo, scientists call it quantum physics. Everybody renamed it, no one disproved it. So I am not a scientist, and either me or the person who made this meme, or maybe both of us, do not understand what quantum physics is. Not really sure about that. Also, the atheists call it placebo. I feel like that's very limiting and kind of an overgeneralization because I've seen some atheists that would say things like, no, it's emotion or whatever. So I'm really not qualified to talk about those two. I'm going to throw that out. But I actually am qualified to talk about all the others. Hi, if you're new here, I am a practicing Christian. I've been a Christian for 15 years. I hold a seminary degree. I also have a Bible minor from a leading evangelical university. However, I have also spent the past 5 years of my life conducting a scholarly, somewhat sociological, in-depth research on neo-pagan religions. This is going to include New Age, Druidry, Wicca, etc. I actually just finished my first nonfiction book addressing these topics, and hopefully it will be coming out soon. So stay tuned for updates about that. In other words, I am qualified to talk about the witches call it spells, Christians call it prayer, and spiritualists call it manifestation. So let's get chatting about this. I want to start with spiritualists call it manifestation. Now, I believe that this meme is not referring to typical spiritualism. Whenever you see the word spiritualism, most of the time that refers to a religion that really kind of started in the 19th century and then peaked around the 1930s. And the entire basis of this religion was this idea that we could reach beyond, that we could contact the spirit world by means of mediums, Ouija boards, whatever. And for them, manifestation was actually something related to mediumship. And I do not believe that's what this actually means here, because that practice is completely divorced to anything that could resemble a prayer or spell or whatever. I think whenever it says spiritualist, it means people who practice an eclectic brand of neo-pagan spirituality. And you do see the word sometimes used in that context. So I look at this and think they mean like, oh, that type of a spiritualist. And for them, manifestation is completely different from the typical spiritualist manifestation, like the spiritualist like my grandma. Their manifestation basically is this teaching or doctrine that if you really desire something and think on it, dwell on it, daydream about it, meditate on it, by your own power or some sort of reciprocal relationship with the universe, this thing will come to you on the physical plane. Basically, think of the room of requirement in Harry Potter, where they had to walk back and forth in that alleyway thinking about the thing that they wanted and kind of seeing it in their mind's eye, and you have Hermione muttering over and over again like it's some kind of mantra, and then the thing just magically appears. That is manifestation. Now, the witches call it spells. Spells, particularly in Wiccan theology, and I'm going to go with New Generation Wicca that was kind of branded and started by Silver Ravenwolf. It's the most popular brand out there, but then also in kind of the brand of Wicca that came beforehand in the 70s that was led by people like Starhawk and Scott Cunningham. Spells were basically about manifestation. It was doing these little rituals with some kind of personal intention behind it, and it's your power, your intention that does this. Whenever you read a spell in a Wiccan textbook, most of them read like this poetic command to the universe. They're almost always written in the present tense, and they're positive. It's an affirmation that the person already has the thing they're desiring, whatever it is. So yeah, basically this meme is making the claim that all these things are the same, and manifestation and spells typically basically are the same thing. But what about prayer? And they don't just say prayer in general. There is such thing as pagan prayer. They say Christian prayer. So what is Christian prayer, and do Christians do this? First of all, I would like to say I know plenty of Christians that practice some form of manifestation. And most of the time, they're not even trying to bring this into prayer. They're just kind of doing it in their own little way. They'll be like, oh, I had this vision board, or I was meditating, or whatever. And if you really corner them on this, I hear a lot of things like, I'm just doing it to open my eyes or whatever. And some people will say, well, I'm doing it with God. Like I'm offering this up to God. I'm sorry. That's not how God has asked to be worshiped. You do not get to pick the terms and conditions for worshiping in God and coming to God. God happens to be omniscient, all-powerful, in control, and he gets to make the rules about how you come to him. Think about Cain and Abel. Cain tried to make his own rules. That didn't go too good. Think about the golden calf. They set it up and said the golden calf was Yahweh. They were worshiping it as Yahweh. No matter what, you never get to make the terms and conditions of how you come to God and how you worship God. God makes the terms and conditions. But what about prayer? Do Christians pray like manifestation? Do they pray like Wiccan spells? Well, let's see. The Bible actually does give us a blueprint for prayer, and the Bible should be considered the Christian's only and leading authority on matters of worship and faith. While prayer, according to the Bible, is supposed to be laced with thanksgiving. Colossians 4:2 says, continue steadfastly in prayer, being watchful in it with thanksgiving. Okay, with thanksgiving. Philippians 4:6 also says, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So there needs to be some kind of element of thankfulness or thanksgiving. There's also petitions. Philippians 4:6, which I just quoted, says to let by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So supplication, thanksgiving, give your request to God. Mark 11:24 also says, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that and you have received it and it will be yours. So both of these indications, thanksgiving and asking, show that God is in control and you are subordinate. Because whenever you give thanksgiving, you're saying like, thank you for this gift. Thank you for this thing that you have done. So God is in the position of giving and we are in the position of gratitude. And also we're not coming up with this thing and saying, oh yeah, bring it to me right now here on this physical plane. We're supposed to be saying, God, please do X, Y, and Z for me. And both of these elements come out in the model prayer. Yeah, Jesus actually taught us how to pray. It's the Lord's Prayer. Now, is this supposed to be a cookie cutter prayer that we pray every day? I think it is good to pray it. I pray the Lord's Prayer a lot, but it's more of a template and a blueprint. The Lord's Prayer says, this then is how you should pray. Jesus gave this to us. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. So we're starting off once again with us being subordinate. We're just focusing on God at this point. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So basically, the person who's praying is supposed to say, not my will be done, not my thing. Remember, manifestation's all about coming up with this thing that you want, making it come to you. We're not supposed to be asking that. We're supposed to be saying, whatever you want, may that come. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Now, I can very clearly see where some people would start to look at the latter part of that prayer and be like, oh no, this is a little bit more like manifestation because it sounds somewhat like we are making a demand of God, but that's mainly due to translation. So in the Hebrew rendering of the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that Hebrew because I can't read, but it is an imperative verb. What's an imperative verb? Well, it's kind of like you're asking, basically. It functions as a request or petition of dependency rather than a forced command. It mirrors a prayer for humble request for sustenance based on daily reliance. And by the way, I did not go to some biased source. This was just random Google. This is unequivocally what this means. So are there really any connections between Christian prayer and manifestation? Well, some people are going to say that they're both powerful. And yeah, the book of James does state that prayers are powerful, but the book of Revelation clarifies that it's powerful because God chooses to listen and God chooses to act. You, my dear, have absolutely nothing to do with that. So whereas manifestation teaches you have power or you can bring about power or you enact power, prayer says you are powerless. But your prayer is powerful because he chooses to listen and he chooses to act. Additionally, prayer is, God, I love you. You are above all. I am subordinate. Please give me this thing. And manifestation is, I have this thing that I am going to bring about. And also, even though Mark 11:24 does make it kind of sound like we get whatever whenever we pray, that is actually not the case. Later in 1 John, God does clarify that we have to ask according to his will. And remember, Jesus himself had unanswered prayers. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prayed, Lord, if it's possible, take this cup from me. And then he went ahead and said, but not my will, yours be done. So Christian prayer is about God's will. It's about being subordinate. It's about thanksgiving and petition. All of that combines together about being subordinate. It's wrong. Just unequivocally wrong. There's nothing else to say about it.